Good morning, everyone.
Oh, hello.
Welcome to day 2 of JNUC. Hopefully you guys, how many went to more than 3 happy hours last night? I know that was the whole debate of which ones do we go to. There was 8.
Yeah, there was a bunch.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
Well, glad you all made it. Glad you all are up. And Adam, my name is Jesse Dresselhaus. I'm a sales engineer here with Jamf.
I'm Tim Knox. I'm a consulting engineer at Jamf. My role is mostly on the mobility side, so I'll mostly be talking that stuff.
Cool. And our session today is 13 easy automations for iOS and macOS. And so what do we mean by the word automation? In my mind, automations are workflows that save you time. Automations are things that you can set up ahead of time to save you clicks and manual work down the road. And in some respect, the entire concept of Jamf or even MDM is automation. 20, 30 years ago, however long it was at this point, our founders, Chip and Zach, they were imaging Macs and installing apps by hand in computer labs at UW-Eau Claire. And they thought, gosh, there's got to be an easier and better way. And so they built Jamf. And in a sense, they built a foundation of automation that we all build on top of now. But now today, we can have good and bad automation. And so let's start off by talking about what is good automation? I stole these words from another colleague here at Jamf, Chris Ball. He did a presentation a few years ago. And he said that automation is built on scalability, dependability, customization, precision, and extensibility. And so good automation has almost, or at least some of these 5 features. And so let's break it down. What do those mean? Scalability. It means that when you build an automation, it can be used in environments of 10 devices, but also it grows with you, and it can grow up to hundreds and then thousands of devices as you go. You don't need to worry about if it's going to break down because you onboarded a new 500 iPads in your environment. Dependable. You don't need to worry about whether the workflow is going to work or not. It just does. Customizable. It's not so specific that your automation can't be customized to work in a new workflow in a new context. Precise means that you're able to set up rules or criteria in an automation that fits into a certain specific subset of criteria or behaviors or context rather than being stuck with the same thing all the time. And finally, extensible. It means that your automations can work between multiple different systems rather than being stuck in the same context. And so what are some real-world examples of automations? The first off, streetlights, something super simple that we take for granted. There's not someone going outside and turning on the streetlight every time it gets dark. They just happen. They just turn on. They're reliable. It's automatic. It's scalable. We have automatic streetlights that happen in small-town USA and New York City. And it's customizable because it works based off of the sunset every day rather than every day at 6 p.m. Home automations, that's something that I'm starting to get into with Home Assistant and Raspberry Pis and things like that. I've got things like lights that turn on automatically when the sun goes down or based off of my alarm. I'm going to start to put some presence sensors in rooms, and it's all automatic to make my life easier. But this is one of the ways that automations maybe aren't so good because in my context, it starts to break down a bit in scalability and dependability. Maybe my Zigbee lights don't work as well because I have more than 100 devices on my Zigbee network, or my Raspberry Pi has issues because I tinkered a little bit too last night and didn't fix something properly. So that's an okay automation. It's fine for my context, but in the enterprise world, it doesn't hit those 5 criteria, and so it wouldn't be an acceptable outcome. And then we got elevators. Tim, you want to talk about elevators?
Yeah, this was my dumb idea. I like the Jamf elevators at the offices. Actually, I'll take this for a second.
Yeah.
They automatically go down to the first floor when there's no elevator there, which I think is just the dumbest and easiest thing, but it makes my life so happy when I go into the office. I walk in and there's an open elevator bay. And I go in and I go up and then an elevator comes back down because it knows there's no elevator down there, so it should probably send an elevator down there because probably people need that because that's where most people are. I lived in a 31st level apartment building in downtown St. Paul for a while. I'd love to have had that, and it's just a dumb little thing that made my life better every single time I went into the office. So that's the other, say we can just keep them simple. But you need to know when that elevator is on that first floor and not on that first floor, and somehow that information needs to get into the system in order to make all that work. So correct information is pretty darn important to get the automation to work properly. So let's talk about how we do that in a few different ways. We're going to talk about all three of these, starting with Mobile Assist. Mobile Assist is not exactly an automation precisely, but it is a way to get really good, valuable, dynamic information into your Jamf Pro system. If you haven't used this tool before or seen it, we've got them set up in the expo bay downstairs, upstairs, wherever we are, wherever the expo hall, where the food is. Go where the food is, and then find this room, and then you can try it out. It's a free app, and you can get it from the App Store. It's actually available publicly as of, I think, yesterday, which is pretty darn cool, too, that we could time that way. It's very dynamic. You can change, the user changes what it is. So it doesn't matter if you are on site or not. You let your teams do the work when they're there. They can populate their name, 4 extension attributes, building, department, get live information that's accurate into your systems so that you can trigger the right automations in the right sort of way. And inventory preload. Now, the difference between inventory preload and things like the MUT or Mobile Assist is that you don't need to have the device managed in order to make this happen. You just need a spreadsheet. You need to have the serial number match the kind of information you want to have populated. But beware, this becomes your source of truth. So every single time the device checks in, it's going to go, hey, is that information different? If it is different, I'm going to make it match that information. Not dynamic, but a really good way to make sure that all the information you have is the same no matter what. And it's neat because you can do this before you enroll a device. So as long as you've got your devices, you know where they're going. Inventory preload is a heck of a good tool. And once you have that information, it just writes that right in the device record, and it doesn't write stuff that you haven't defined. So you can do a mixture of both. You can have inventory preload to define some things, but not all things, and have some things be dynamic, and some things remain static, depending on what kind of stuff you need to automate.
And some people, they take inventory preload and they upload the CSV, they onboard their 200 new devices, and then they rip that CSV out. So then you as an admin, that's no longer your source of truth. You can go into Jamf Pro and make your changes in inventory like you're used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, totally doable. And then, of course, there's manual labor. Yeah,
don't do it.
I don't really want to do that. I don't want to touch glass. I don't want to have anybody touch glass. Just let the robots do it as much as possible.
Cool. So maybe you're feeling a little bit like this guy, what automations are a bit overwhelming. Where do we start? Well, let's start small. And funny story, the reason we have this is because our session is 13 easy automations. If you've ever watched a YouTube video that's like, the 12 coolest places to visit in Denver, sometimes it's a little scattershot. And so that was kind of our idea behind this session. And so it's a little scattershot, but a lot of really cool ideas. So when we had a transition that we didn't know how to transition, we just put a cat GIF in.
And also, I got a cat on Saturday. Brand new cat. I'm very excited about it. We're going with Enzo. So if you want to see some pictures of the cat, we'll show you afterwards. Lovely little white cat with a tabby tail. Okay.
Anyways, let's start small. Email reports. How many of you have ever been told, if you could just finish those TPS reports, that'd be just great, thanks. Or can you fill me in every month on how many computers we need to refresh? We live in a world where data is king, and everyone wants to be informed. But with that comes more work, more responsibility, more time spent getting that data to the right people and the right. If we can just automate that with some email reports, it can save us time, it can save us energy for deeper work that requires a more personal touch. And so with Jamf Pro, we can create reports with advanced searches looking for the thing that we want to report on. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a report, or create an advanced search, and we're going to name it. And so with all automations, we're going to talk about this a little bit, really all things Jamf Pro, make sure your naming conventions are good and consistent. And then once we're done with that, we're going to create that report and look for the criteria that we want. In this case, we're just looking for all iPads, but maybe we want to look at every device in a particular region, every device running a certain OS. These reports are customizable, they are scalable, and they are precise. And so now, once we have that report with the criteria created, we're able to actually look at the report and either download it immediately or create the email report. And now you can think of it, even if you just downloaded it here, that's automation in one sense because you're not needing to maintain that CSV file yourself. And anytime something changes, go and make that change. Jamf is doing it for you. But then taking it one step further is emailing those reports out automatically. And so we can choose who this report goes to, how often, whether it's a daily thing, a monthly thing, the second Tuesday of the month, whatnot. And once that gets sent out, they're going to get the CSV file that shows the information that they have requested. And so now you have the info, your bean counters have the info, and you don't need to grant access to people that you don't want poking around in your server. Everyone wins. It's also really extensible. You could totally set this up to email that report into a different service for issue tracking, to-do lists. If it can take like a .csv, it could then feed that information to something else and then extract that information for a different use. So all right, so now it's time to jump into something completely different. Smart groups. This is one of the best parts of Jamf, one of the key parts of most of our automations. So we're going to start with something that has the does not have operator in smart groups. And so we're going to start by creating a new smart group. And side note, look at that fancy new description field. Tim, what do you think about that field?
As someone who inherited my JSS, I cannot tell you how happy I would have been to have seen notes in a description to find what my smart groups were. Take advantage of this. Your predecessors will thank you.
Yeah. We're going to use the does not have operator in this smart group. This is a computer group. And you can use this in a lot of useful ways. But what we're going to do is we're going to use it to define an app that we want to be installed on every computer in this context and in this server. And so we're gonna create that group. We're gonna say does not have Safari, Firefox, whatever. And then we're gonna create a policy that installs that software, scope it to that group so that it installs on computers the moment that it doesn't have that piece of software installed. Now, why is this important? Well, some environments, it's important to have assurances that certain software is installed and gets reinstalled the moment it goes missing. Maybe you allow your users to be admins, and this is going to reinstall the required apps if they choose to remove it. And then you can look at the policy logs later on to see what computers keep getting the policy ran again and again and again, and have some one-on-one conversations about why they're uninstalling. Or maybe you're enrolling existing computers into your Jamf Pro server, and you don't want to install the browser over top of an existing installation and risk removing the user's customizations. There's a lot of use cases for this. But there is one thing that this automation needs, or we run the risk of a really, really bad time. And it's a callback to what Tim talked about earlier with needing good data. And that's updating inventory. If we don't add that update inventory to the end of the policy, Jamf isn't going to know that the policy ran and installed that piece of software. And so that computer is still going to be part of that smart group, and it's still going to be scoped to that policy, and it's going to install again and again and again until that automatic inventory update happens. And by default, that automatic inventory update happens once per week. And so even if you're lucky, you're 5 days into that week, your users are militant about shutting their laptop at 5 o'clock, you're still going to have like 64 installs over and over again. So make sure you do that inventory update.
And we can do this on iOS too. So if the app is missing, it gets installed. And check out this segue. What else can we do with iOS app automation? I think this is still you.
This is still me.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, this is still me.
Yeah.
Cool. If you're managing corporate-owned devices and you let your users install apps on their own, have their own personal Apple IDs, some users might install apps that you want to have some control over. Think things like media streaming apps. And with the context of data roaming controls. And so here we're going to look for that app again with a smart group, but this time we want to look for all devices that do have that app installed, and we want to do this specifically on iOS for mobile devices, or iPadOS as well. So then we're going to create that app record that does 3 things. First, it installs that application automatically. This isn't going to reinstall the app, but it's going to take over management, because then we're going to check that box that says make app managed when possible and convert unmanaged apps to managed. And then third, we're going to scope it to that smart group. So then that as soon as the user installs that application, this policy or this app record is going to take over management of that application. And now any managed and supervised device that the user installs it on, we will now have the ability to control that app with configuration profiles, restrictions, things like that. And so probably the most common use case of this is data policies, being able to set a configuration profile that says, hey, you can have YouTube on your device, but we don't want you using cellular data to use that app. And so you can do that here in Jamf Pro, but that leads us to another automation of you can also do the data controls within Jamf Security Cloud. And so you can avoid having to check your data reports from your mobile carrier, having conversations, manually keeping people accountable, or even running the workflow that we showed earlier with smart groups, because this allows you to set criteria or categories that have different data controls. And so maybe things like browsers you're going to allow, adult and nudity content you're going to block altogether, advertising you're going to allow, but then cloud and file storage, maybe you're going to say, hey, you can do that, but only if you're on Wi-Fi, or you can do that, but only up to 2 gigs, things like that. Now, this might make your users sad, but it could save you a lot of money. It could make your life a lot easier. And what isn't sad is all of the other things that we can do with smart groups.
Right. So the whole idea is now actually not needed because of the keynote yesterday, because the keynote just Sherlocked my whole. But I'm going to go through it anyway, because the people who aren't going to be using the set it and forget it function that we announced yesterday, the people who aren't part of that beta, will still want to do iOS updates based on smart group membership. Here's the idea here. So we're going to build a smart group that says I need the operating system to be at a specific version or below, or above. Below, above. What did I say? Less than. And then you can set all sorts of other criteria in addition to this, like a specific department, maybe a test group, whatever it is you're looking to make sure that these devices are set to the correct version. Going over to the software update section, you can then select that smart group, so you're only targeting the group of devices that are not running the version of the operating system that you want to have deployed to your fleet. Moving forward onto the next screen, you can select which type of installation you want to do. Do you want to just install it, or do you want to download it? Do you want to schedule it? How do you want to impact this collection of devices in order for it to get that update to happen on that device itself? Now, set and forget is going to be a lot slicker than this, but for now, this is a really easy way to say, I just need to make sure the stuff that isn't running the version is running the version, and then watch the smart group shrink population until hopefully 0?
Hopefully.
But maybe not, and then you'll go track down why. Now, I don't have actually a great segue for this one. Oh yeah, I do. Look at it. I said set and forget it is going to be money, and I'm excited not to have to think about that workflow anymore. And you think about it a little bit, it's just automating and automation with the set it and forget it part. Previous automations have mostly been talking about taking advantage of, taking action on a device based on the condition of the device. But what if you want to do something on a schedule? Impossible in Jamf Pro? Kinda, yeah. But with routines, you can actually start scheduling things. So let's talk about routines a little bit. Routines, you have to be a member of the SKU that is Jamf for Mobile or Jamf for Mac. So you do have to hit that minimum requirement in order to use this tool. But I love this tool. I would have given anything to have this tool. It is a webhook server, like a Lambda server, or our Jamf automated webhook assistant, but it's templated. So you don't have to write any code. You don't have to know Python or Bash or anything. You just pick the templates that you want to use, and it will generate a webhook in Jamf Pro that has the actions that you want to perform. Now, it's important to do naming conventions. It will name it this or something similar to this when you create the routine in routines. So name it, probably match what you want to have scheduled. This one that I had was fairly simple, just restarting on a schedule. There's all sorts of reasons why you might want to have that happen. Maybe you've got devices that are in single lab mode and you want to just make sure that they're going to restart so they get the updates happening. Maybe you just want to restart because it's going to keep a heartbeat of that device so it doesn't ever get disconnected from the network for whatever reason. And then you can just make sure that it's going to be checking in all the time because you're restarting. That's pretty simple, but there's a lot of other things you can do. How about things like shutting down devices on a schedule or based on smart group membership change, or forcing DDM sync on computers? Locking devices and computers on a schedule might be kind of fun and mean to do to people. You can cancel some commands. You can delete devices and computers, a terrifying power to have to do on a schedule, but something that you could have, or wiping devices on a schedule or on a smart group membership change. There is a ton of stuff you can do in routines. I'm going to be talking about quite a bit of it because it's my favorite tool up here, and so I get to talk about what I want. Renaming a device on smart group change. Something that I think could be really useful. Maybe you've got a kitting company that is doing a lot of the work for you as it goes through the process of becoming enrolled, becoming managed, becoming secured. Maybe there's some information that gets put on this device, and then it ends up in a smart group that has all the information that you need to define this device as a fully compliant device. At that point, once it enters that smart group, you can rename that device based on all the variables that you've collected on that device itself and get a really deep label on what the device is actually called. Or maybe it's an asset tag. You can update that. Or maybe it's an extension attribute. Write that value in there. There is a ton of variables, which we'll talk about in a minute, that you can use as the naming convention or just to get information on there. Really, 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 really powerful tool. You can receive notifications on enrollment. I do this. I think it's really slick. It's another routine, and there's a lot of stuff you can use. You can use Slack or Teams or WebEx. I use Teams mostly because I'm an administrator on the teams that we have at Jamf, and so I can establish that connection, and so I can show you how it works. So the first thing you'll do is open routines. Once you have routines, you'll tie your Jamf Pro server to routines. It's a really simple process to make that happen, and then it establishes that API connection between that tool and Jamf. The next step would be to connect Microsoft Teams to your routines, which is really fun to say. And that's also pretty simple too. You do need a Microsoft administrator to make that happen. It's read-only. It's not a hard connection to make, but you do need some rights in order to make that happen. And then you select the group and the team that you want to send this information to. And then you can start writing some information to that Teams or Slack or whatever to get an understanding about what your fleet is actually doing. And check this out. The variables go on forever. This is just the mobile device variables that I'm seeing. Stuff that we don't really have variables for in Jamf, we do have in routines. My example, I'm going to let this play through because this really does just go on forever. Yep, that's lots of variables. And then you got computers and users and all sorts of other stuff you can use. And what it looks like in Teams when you have a device enroll, mine is fairly simple. I tell it what serial number got enrolled, what type of hardware it is, and what operating system it's running. And now I have a historical record of every device that it's enrolled in my Jamf Pro in Teams in a tool that I'm looking for, or maybe your people who need to know this sort of thing, or other smart group membership changes that happen, or on a schedule. Maybe they need to know some of this stuff and they don't have access to Jamf at all, but they are looking at Slack every day. And so now they can be able to see what's happening with your fleet and in tools that they're actually using. Cool stuff. All right, so this one gets a little bit more complicated. It's going to be tying a few of these ideas together to just sort of layer some things on top of each other. Now, theoretically, sending an iOS update to a device that's in single app mode works. Theoretically, but I'm a belt and suspenders guy. I was administrator before I worked at Jamf. I don't trust anything until I can absolutely prove that it works every single time. So this idea here is to use routines to remove single app mode from a device, do an update, verify the update happened, and then put single app mode back on that device. And maybe you're going to be doing that with the operating system, maybe you'll be doing it with an app, but single app mode is a very difficult thing to handle when you're trying to manage it, especially at scale. So to start, create an extension attribute that looks for a value. I'm, again, a very simple man, so I did single app mode is off and single app mode is on, and I just scope it appropriately. If it says on, it's going to be part of the configuration profile that's scoped to. If it says off, it's an exclusion from that group. And then in routines, you can update an extension attribute on a schedule maybe, or on a smart group membership change. Pick your poison. Oh, I should mention too, because I think this is fun, it also does either entering or exiting a smart group. So you can do a different trigger if it enters a smart group or if it exits a smart group. So you can start to get a little clever with that too. But the idea here is on a schedule, I have this running every single day. That's probably a little aggressive, but you can. And coincidentally, it has run 100 times. You can see the historical record of how many times it's run when it was last run in the bottom left-hand corner of that screen there. And it's going to flip it to off. And now it's no longer in single app mode. So now I go back to my software updates, and I target the group that says single app mode is off, and it's not running the right kind of operating system that I want it to be running. Once it completes, it's going to, oh yeah, there it is. It's going to fall into this smart group. Single app mode is off, and it's running the right kind of operating system that I want to be running. So now I have a device that has gone through the process of being updated, but single app mode is still off, which is why we have routines again. Once it enters that smart group, it's going to flip that extension attribute back to on, which will then put it back in that configuration profile, pop single app mode back onto that device, and you're ready to go. Maybe you toss a restart in that process too. But this is a way you can do these kinds of actions and not think about it very much, which is actually my favorite thing, not thinking.
Cool. Awesome. So now this is going to be pretty polarizing. Hopefully this GIF isn't. This is one of my favorite GIFs. Some of you are going to be excited about this. Others, not so much. AI, Jamf Assistant. All of the buzzwords that we hear every day. But it's real. It's here. It's in Jamf, and so we're going to talk about it. And so Jamf Assistant, if you didn't come to the keynote yesterday, is our foray into AI specific to Jamf. And so we've shown some really cool workflows with it so far, and I'm going to highlight 3 that maybe you haven't seen before, which is housekeeping, one-time insights, and advanced smart group creation. So first off, Jamf Assistant can help you clean up your Jamf Pro server. And so in this case, specifically smart groups. You'll see here that I asked it about my environment. And why is that? Well, Jamf Pro can get messy. How many of you are perfectly content with how organized your Jamf Pro server is? No, not at all. There's probably at least one of you in here that's like Tim, who inherited a Jamf Pro server that was years, if not over a decade old. And so we're going to ask, tell me about my smart groups, any smart groups that are not scoped to any computers. And it's gonna say, I'm gonna help you with that. First, I'm gonna get a list of smart groups, and it's gonna walk through its logic of what it's doing and saying, based on the results, here's a list of the computers, or the smart groups, what their names are, and all these smart groups here are not scoped to any computers. And so they could easily be cleaned up and make your Jamf Pro server a little tidier. It's also, I believe it's saying that you can do this for mobile as well. If it's not, you can do it for mobile as well. And I'm going to ask it, hey, can you delete these for me right now? And it's going to say, no, I can't do that for you right now. Eventually, someday, maybe, I think we're going to add in the ability for Jamf Assistant to actually do things, which is a little scary. I'm kind of okay with it, with like enough guardrails, but this is opt-in. That will definitely be opt-in. And so take it in the pieces that you want. So you can also ask it for one-time insights about things that maybe you don't want to make a report or a group about. And so here, I'm going to ask it, do I have any computers that have Firefox version 139 installed? And maybe I didn't want to create a smart group for this. Maybe I didn't want to create an advanced search that I just had to like go back and clean up later and delete later. I just wanted this one-time insight because there was a specific vulnerability that I was concerned about. And so it's going to find any computers that have that version, and it's going to tell me actually what computers have Firefox at all with any version. So this is just a test environment. There's just a handful of computers installed. And you're going to see, based on current Firefox version information, it says here's the version, the regular version, the EBR version, the developer edition, all of that, and give me all the data that I want. In fact, it's going to tell me that I have some that are like really old. So I should probably fix that. Yeah. Next, it can help with smart group creation as well, but it's not perfect. How many AI makes things up? It's a thing. And so initially, I asked it to help me create a group with approximately 10% of my fleet for beta testing purposes. That's a common feature request out there. People who want to be able to beta test software or have a group that only has a 10%, randomized 10% of their computers or devices so that they can push something new to that group. And so I asked Jamf Assistant to help me with that. And first off, it created something with smart group logic that didn't exist at all.
Cool.
Then I asked it to do it based off of serial numbers in Regex, and it made a Regex that didn't fit Apple's serial numbers syntax.
Cool.
And then finally, in this example, I had it create a group with Regex based off of the UDID instead. And so while I did have to have some knowledge, and it made mistakes initially, it helped me learn more about Regex, about hexadecimal formatting, how serial numbers and UDIDs are formatted, and most of all, it helped me save time by not needing to learn how to use Regex. I think that's
valuable.
And so sometimes AI might feel like this. What the heck is it doing? What the heck is it saying? But my view of it is that it's a tool and always verify. Last but not least, bringing everything together, well, I guess not AI, but everything else together, an admin request sequence, admin elevation sequence. So why are we talking about this? Why did I do this? Well, frankly, it's because a customer asked for it. They said, hey, we really like that Jamf can do admin elevation. Spoiler, if you didn't know, Jamf can do admin elevation where you make all your users standard, and then they have the ability to self-elevate themselves to be admins. But in their case, they wanted to give that access and give those permissions, but they wanted to have certain people be able to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on that request before that request was approved. And so what does that look like? And so this following example is really simple. In reality, you might want to build more on top of it, but this is just kind of an early proof of concept. And so first, we're going to create a policy. We're going to give that policy no trigger, no packages, no nothing. It's just a policy that does nothing. We're going to put it in self-service. We're going to set it to ongoing so the user can run it whenever they want. And then we're going to set up a routine that, like Tim talked about earlier, that can notify into Teams or Slack or ServiceNow or PagerDuty or something else. And that this routine is then set to run whenever that policy completes. So then the user hits that button in self-service. The admin gets the notification that, hey, Tim just requested admin rights. And then the admin would then log into Jamf Pro and flip an extension attribute to yes. And once they flip that extension attribute, that throws the computer into a smart group. The smart group's then scoped to the proper configuration profiles with the privilege elevation key value pairs. And then the user is able to elevate themselves to admin because they have the profile. And so while this whole process isn't automated, the bits that are painful are, and it still gives you the proper oversight in the areas that you want proper oversight. And now you might be saying, that's cool, but like, what about this? What about that? And so I've done some work to further this and to enhance this even more that lets you do things like set the duration of approval for an EA. So maybe they get admin access one time, or if they can do it for a day or for a week. That leverages lots of smart groups, lots of EAs, lots of routines, some code, and that's kind of beyond the scope of the session today.
Yeah, it's like all this stuff is technically doable that we talked about in routines without routines. Routines is designed to make this really easy for the folks who absolutely do not want to write code. If you do want to write code, these endpoints exist. They're all possible. And so we can create this stuff ad hoc as needed. But I mean, with routines, you just get to click the buttons and make it simple. And that's what I like about it.
But then even with routines, you can build on top of it and have routines trigger scripts.
Sure, why not?
And like you can get super nerdy with it, but still have that solid backbone of not having to, host a Java server or have a Lambda function server doing stuff. And so maybe I build on this for next year. Anyone want to see a more advanced admin elevation workflow for next year? No, some people? Cool, great. Anyways, maybe next year. If you found this interesting, you want more of it, there is another session tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. called What's New with Extension Attributes, an Admin's Journey. I think that's led by Steve Wood. Yeah. Steve Wood, Hall of Famer.
He's a great guy.
Great. And so with that, thank you.
And now we got questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, because there's no, oh, we got one right here. Great, we got
a mic coming around.
Frank.
Do I have the capability to get failed iOS commands, and if iOS command is pending for a specific amount of time, like notification for that?
Asking if the iOS update has failed, you want to get a notification?
Like a iOS command that Jamf sent out, whether it's a Wi-Fi profile, whatever command sent to the device, if it fails, can I get a notification in Teams or through another method?
That's a good question. So I think the question was if a command gets sent to a device and it fails, and we see the fail that happens because we can see that in the device record, can we get a notification in Teams that has failed? It's a great idea, not as part of the template for routines. Feels like the sort of thing that should be possible because we do have that information, so why wouldn't we be able to write that someplace? So let's figure it out. Yeah. We'd have to do it with a script likely because there's definitely no template that does that today. Yeah.
On your slide, rename device on smart group change. We're talking about Mac devices and iOS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I do the iOS side. We were asking if you'd rename a Mac on smart group change. Yeah, absolutely.
It'll show that name change on the Mac?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've tried that before, but not on like a smart group. It doesn't change it for some reason. It keeps it. And I talked to someone last year, and they said, I had to create an API or something for that to happen because I guess the OS is different, unless something changed between then and now.
Did you use routines to make that happen a year ago, or was that a different system?
No, I imported it into my Jamf Pro, and I can see that the computer name is just, generic. So I decided, well, what will happen if I change it, within the console?
Yeah.
I go and change it on the computer, and it doesn't do that.
So I know with computers, it's been a while since I've done this, but I think there's like 3 different places that you need to rename it. And so that's why a lot of times people do choose to do that with a script. That's the easiest way because there's like the network name, the local name, and something else. Yeah, pop by the support desk later today, and they'll help you out with that.
Yeah. It's bright and
Very
quiet
bright
up here. Okay.
No more questions.
Loving that. And come find us in the expo hall. We're down there all day.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for your attention.
Thanks everyone.